For all those of you listening at home, let's take a walk down memory lane.
Remember the days we set out together with faith. Remember the times so fine when we thought nothing could stand in our way.
Then things weren't the same. The life that we knew had to change.
We struggled through the darkest storms we thought we couldn't take.
Through many years gone by, we moved ahead together. We've built a brave new world where we could shine and grow.
Oh, and now we only have to look towards tomorrow to carry on the dream as far as it will go.
So now we look around us and we see
Ooh, a nation built with love by you and me.
a land of treasure right down to the core. Our home, our heart, our Singapore. Our home, our heart, our Singapore.
To my people of the future,
We built it for the ones that dream. Hand in hand, we'll make our land.
our home, the place to be. From young to go, our stories unfold.
Moments like these will speak words that last forever, worlds that come together to show that we're all the same. We'll break the chains to make a change. Burn bright, our light and city flame.
And amazing as it seems, it all started with a dream.
But the dreaming isn't done, 'cause the best is yet to come.
Deep in my heart, I just know right from the start we will grow. Look where we are, we've come so far, and there's still a long, long way to go. With all of my heart, I will care. I'll play my part, I will share with family and friends. Together we'll stand, and in the end, hand in hand, we will get there.
A very good evening to our very special guest, Dr. Maliki Osman, Senior Minister of State for Defense and Foreign Affairs, Madam Juliet Liu, President of International Multicultural Organization, co-presenter of this evening dialogue, distinguished members of the Board of Humanity Members, a new interfaith humanitarian NGO, the other co-presenter for this dialogue, esteemed faith elders and activists, foreign dignitaries, close friends, and fellow men. Welcome to this first ever Interfaith National Day special. We trust you've had a very fruitful and enjoyable time attending or watching the National Day Parade 2 days ago. To our Singaporean Muslim brothers and sisters, we wish Selamat Hari Raya Haji. The key significance of Hari Raya Haji is the virtue of sacrifice. Hence, we are happy and privileged that our Singaporean Muslim friends are present with us this evening, sacrificing your family time and festive time. It is truly nice to see a sea of red and white right here this evening. It really gives the feeling of a great sense of camaraderie and patriotism. For your information, this evening's event is being streamed live by our IMC friends to 12 million of the Pure Land members around the world through the Australian and Taiwanese channels. But before we proceed to the dialogue segment, in the spirit of our National Day and by the teachings of all religions, let us extend our gladness and gratitude with our observance of thanksgiving for what we have enjoyed, and as we wish for better times for our coming generations, let us together pray for Singapore and all Singaporeans, and also for each of our friends here and beyond Singapore. With that, may I invite everyone to be on our feet for a collective moment of thanksgiving and reflections in silence. We shall now observe a minute of silence. Thank you. Please be seated. This evening, we have 5 senior and seasoned speakers from the Buddhist, Christian, Muslim, Sikh, and Taoist faiths to share on the topic of piety and patriotism. To bring the speakers on stage and introduce them, may I invite someone who's no stranger in moderating interfaith dialogues. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming on stage our moderator for this evening's dialogue. He's none other than our guest of honor, Dr. Maliki Osman, Senior Minister of State for Defense and Foreign Affairs.
All right. It's on. Very good evening, everyone. Welcome to this very special edition of our Interfaith Dialogue. Many of you might have come to several of our other previous dialogues, but this is a special edition because, as mentioned by our MC earlier, it commemorates 2 very important events during this period. Hari Raya Haji, celebrated amongst Muslim brothers and sisters here, as well as, of course, National Day, celebrated by all Singaporeans. So 2 occasions. And it's very interesting, that's why we brought these 2 occasions together, and you see the title of the event tonight is really in relation to how do we bring these 2 together, piety and patriotism. What does it mean for us as Singaporeans, and at the same time, all of us having our own respective faith and beliefs. And how do these two come together? So thank you so much for coming. Can I have a show of hands? How many of us here are here for the very first time to attend an interfaith dialogue session? Wow, not bad. About a third, I would imagine. Okay. Well, we all know our nation is always influenced by its own development and destiny. It's up to us to determine the kind of society we want to be. Peace, security, progress comes with, of course, commitment, of the time cost, service, and sacrifice, very much aligned with what we are commemorating today also in terms of Hari Raya Aidiladha. On this celebratory season, it may be timely for us to reflect and discuss on the essence of piety and patriotism, both in the social sense as well as through our spiritual lens. I usually have a sense as to who is present here today, so I'm going to ask you from which faith you are in, and if you can show your hands as I call out your groups. Yeah, can I have a show of hands? Our Buddhist friends who are here? Excellent. Our Muslim friends? Good. Our Hindus? Yes, a few. Our Taoists? Right, quite a number there. Christians? Excellent. Zoroastrians? Yes, one. Ever faithful. Always attending our session. Jains? Any Jains today? Not here today. Okay. Baha'is? Yes. A few Baha'i friends have always been around. Thank you for being here. Jews? Today is Sunday. Sunday evening. Also Sunday evening okay already. 6. Lupa. Gumit. I was waiting for him to put out his hand. All right. Atheists? Agnostics? Yes, one there, recognizing you too. And any other groups I've missed out? No, right? I've covered everybody. Okay, thank you so much for being here. Well, let me just introduce the speakers and bring them on stage. We are very fortunate to have 5 senior members of their respective faith to share with us their perspective on the topic of piety and patriotism. First, let me welcome Mr. Michael Tan. Okay, please give a round of applause. All right, Mr. Michael Tan is a practicing Buddhist and works as a senior lecturer at the NUS Institute of System Science and has vast experience in IT industry. All right, so it's an IT person talking about Buddhism. He is a volunteer and working member of the International Multicultural Organization, IMC, one of our co-organizers today, which promotes interfaith engagements and harmony. All right. Next speaker, can I invite Mr. Gerald Kong? Thank you. Mr. Gerald Kong is the Executive Secretary of the Archdiocesan Catholic Council of the Interreligious Dialogue and the Archdiocesan Catholic Council of Ecumenical Dialogue, fostering stronger relations and understanding both interfaith and intra-faith. He also serves at St. Gabriel's Primary School and St. Gabriel's Secondary School as a Montfortune Education Officer, school lay chaplain. Besides a Bachelor of Accountancy from NTU, he has a licentiate in Sacred Theology, Systematic Theology from the Loyola School of Theology in Manila. He was also awarded the Master of Arts and Theological Studies by the Antonio de Manila University. All right, give a warm welcome to Mr. Gerald Kong. Our next speaker is Ustaz Dr. Muhammad Hanan Hassan. Can we give him a big round of applause? Ustaz Hanan is no stranger to many of us. He is the Deputy Director of Capacity Building at the Islamic Religious Council of Singapore, or MOIS. He's also the Vice Dean of the MOIS Academy and the Program Head for the Postgraduate Certificate for Islam in Contemporary Societies, PCICS. Dr. Hanan is highly inclined and passionate in philosophy and the history of ideas and civilization, particularly Islamic education. He specializes in Muslim-Jew relations, interfaith relations, and history and philosophy of Islamic law in the Malay Archipelago. All right, welcome, Dr. Hanan. Our next speaker is another no stranger to all of us, Mr. Gurmeet Singh. Mr. Gurmeet Singh has been an educator for the past 47 years. He hails from a respectable line of interfaith activists. His father, Dr. Mahevran Singh, was one of the founders of the interreligious organizations in Singapore, our IRO. Under Gurmeet's stewardship as the president of IRO in 2015, IRO celebrated its 65th anniversary at the Istana, hosted by Prime Minister Lee and graced by President Tony Tan. Welcome, Gurmeet. Looking forward to hear from you. And our final speaker is Master Wei. Master Wei is an ordained Taoist priest who is no stranger to the interfaith sector, both locally and internationally. He heads the local social enterprise, WISE SG, which drives programs attending to issues including extremism and exclusivism for interfaith appreciation and social cohesion. Master Wei holds a master's in Malay Studies from the NUS. Very interesting credential there. Welcome. Before we begin, I am also happy to see that we have very well represented with many of our other senior colleagues here tonight. We have with us this evening senior leaders of and practitioners from the Baha'i faith, Buddhist faith, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Jain, Sikh, Taoist, Zoroastrian communities. Let me just recognize all of them who are here with us today. From the Baha'i faith, we have Mr. Kwek Yishing and Mr. Ying Hong Xuan. Welcome. From Buddhism, we have Venerable N. Sumana Thera, Venerable Sri Yong Kwang, Venerable Dr. K. Gunaratana, and Venerable Go Kwang Kiang Pra. Welcome. From our Christian community, we have Sister Teresa Xiao, who's also here today. Welcome, Sister. From our Hindu faith, we have Mr. S. Ramesh. Mr. S. Ramesh here? On the way here, okay. And from Sikhism, we have Mr. Harpal Singh, Mr. Bhajan Singh, and Mr. Dribal Singh. Rest. Thank you. From Taoism, we have Mr. Tan Tiam Lai, Mr. Tan here, Mr. Master Lee Tse Wang, Master Tan Tse Chia, and Mr. Ling Kin Huat. And of course, Mr. Rostam Kadiali from Zoroastrianism. Thank you so much, everyone. So we are very fortunate because not only do we have 5 wonderful speakers here, we will also have the wisdom of many of our very senior colleagues who are in the audience to also share with us the perspective of their other faith. In addition to that, we also are happy to have several of our other partners who have been here in several of our other installations of this program, including our friends from the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Home Affairs, National Leadership, Community Leadership Institute, and NACLI, S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies, NUS, ACS International, Nanyang Junior College, Pei Tong Primary School, Global Indian School, and several other corporate leaders. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, amongst us also are distinguished guests from several of our embassies, from the Embassy of Germany, our ambassador is here, Embassy of India and Sri Lanka also. I have representatives here. So I would like to first request for questions to center around the topic today, which is piety and patriotism, for this very interesting Interfaith National Day edition. We don't get this that often. I tell you, the next time you're going to get this is maybe another 10 years or 15 years later, because the Muslim calendar comes round a while before it comes back to this. So you are in luck for this very interesting session. Now, before we begin, let me just set the context. We're talking about piety. What really is piety? Some call it religious devotion, spirituality, humility, right? In Asia, it also connotes loyalty and deference to family, community, and country. We call it filial piety. So piety is not just in relation to religion, but also in the Asian context, we tend to look at it in the context of families and community. Religion and spirituality and nation building has coexisted for centuries, akin to piety in religion. Patriotism shares common underlying themes of commitment, positive values, and sacrifice. Patriotism, like religion, should be anchored through spirituality, not the shallow sense of ritualistic observance, of course, but we need to pillar patriotism on certain beliefs that we have as members of the country. Patriotism is often interchangeably used with nationalism, but I think we have to be careful with that. We have to draw a distinction between patriotism and nationalism, because when you look at patriotism, there's a significant, deeper understanding of mutual acceptance and commitment to improvement, rather than just blind faith to superiority of the nation. Nationalism tends to bring us to a blind faith of what the nation is, whereas patriotism really allows us to have a deeper understanding and mutual acceptance and commitment towards what we all believe in as a citizen. Therefore, it's critical for us to foster greater gratitude and objectivity amidst increasing such anti-establishment sentiments. The faith sector, as we're all here today, has an important role to play in fostering this civic virtue for sustainable peace and prosperity. We need to look at how the secular governance can learn from spiritual scaffolding to imbue, mold, and develop deeper spirit of gratitude, trust, and reciprocity in the midst of generally volatile, reactive, and intolerant global climate. So there's so much that we have seen today, and I think today we want to really unravel some of these very important dimensions of spirituality and what it means for us to be a citizen of a country when we talk about patriotism. So let me just start off with inviting our speakers to share their perspective. Because we have about 5 speakers, we've told them that they only have 5 minutes. So each, not 5 minutes all, 5 minutes each. And they're not going to talk about the principles, the fundamentals of the religion or faith, but focus on the issues at hand, which is piety. And the bigger question really is, how is patriotism viewed in their respective faith? So the piety aspects of patriotism, right? 5 minutes each, and then I will open the floor for questions, comments, and discussion. So we have a lot more time for us to engage our speakers in conversation for today. All right? So let me start off with our very first speaker. I've mentioned his name and bio, Mr. Michael Tan, our Buddhist practitioner who is also from the International Multicultural Organization. Michael, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Maliki. The first time I met Dr. Maliki, I didn't know he's such a warm and friendly minister. I didn't know minister is like that one.
Oh, thank you lah.
Yeah. In fact, I'm very impressed. I'm really impressed. Yeah. So okay, let's go into the topic. Right. I'm gonna briefly introduce Buddhism. Right. Before we talk about patriotism. Right. Many years ago, someone asked a venerable, right, that what is Buddhism? And the venerable answered, "Do no evil, do all good deeds." And the man who asked the venerable the question wasn't impressed. He said, "This answer, even a 3-year-old child knows. I'm not impressed." And the venerable said, "Yes, a 3 years old child will know this answer, but even a 80 years old man couldn't do this." Yeah. So the essence of Buddhism is really do no evil, do all good deeds. All right. So And okay, in Buddhism, we also refer to, okay, let me just give you an example, right? All right, in Buddhism, we refer to the foundation of Buddhism. Before you even get in touch with Buddhism, what should you do? The prerequisite, so to speak, all right? Prerequisite Buddhism, right? Prerequisite Buddhism is Confucianism and Taoism, right? So we learn from them first. They are the foundation. Without those foundations, you won't be able to become a good Buddhist, right? And one of the things we were taught to do, right, is treat others' gain as your gain. Treat others' gain as your gain, and treat others' loss as your loss. Right. So if imagine everyone on earth is able to do that, what will happen? Let me tell you first thing, Hong Kong will have no protests. We'll be able to live in harmony. Right? And for do no evils, do all good deeds, let's go to the specifics, those that relate to patriotism. In Buddhist scriptures, there are 4 precepts that we can find. Right? It relates to patriotism. Right? The first is do not hurt one's country. You do not hurt the country's reputation. You do not hurt the country's people. Right? Second is do not slander one's country's leader. We may have disagreement. Right? You may disagree with someone. You even if the person is in the wrong, you do not slander the person in public. Right? So what is Buddhist view when someone do something wrong? Right? You talk to him nicely, provided he can accept. Right? You only persuade him to change if you feel that he can accept. If you feel that he can't accept, you don't even persuade him, because that will only result in a quarrel. Right? So how you change him is through your action. For example, someone throws rubbish. You, instead of telling him don't throw rubbish, you pick up his rubbish and throw in the dustbin. This is Buddhist view of how you change someone. Okay, third is do not evade one's national tax. Right? This includes income tax. This includes your 5-minute car park. Right? Right. Now, okay, you can argue that we have a coupon is half an hour, right? I park for 5 minutes, I shouldn't be paying, right? There's this thing called parking.sg. There's no excuse, right? There's an app for that. Right. And last but not least, do not break one's country's law. And what is Buddhism's view in terms of in patriotism? In essence, is to be a good person. Before you become a good Buddhist, you'll be a good person. And a good person includes being a good citizen. Right? So, in fact, when Dr. Malaki asked me, what's your view? What's Buddhist view? Is there a conflict? Frankly speaking, I was feeling a bit strange, because patriotism is part of Buddhism's practice. Okay, and last but not least, I want to qualify that I'm a practice Buddhism. I'm practice Buddhist. There are still a lot to learn, and I see many of you whom I recognize is actually better and more experienced than me, right? And I feel kind of strange being on stage instead of you. Yeah. And later during the dialogue, I have to direct some of my questions to Venerable Wu Xing, who is a disciple of Master Ching Kong, right? It was also a teacher that I respected a lot, that I listened to. He won't see me. I see him when he is on YouTube, right, yeah. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Michael. I like your 4 precepts, especially from a government's perspective, precept number 3. Do not evade one's national tax. I think this should be applied to all citizens, whether you're Buddhist or not. Okay, so pay your parking, pay your income tax, pay everything, right? And of course, number 4 also very important. Do not break any one country's law. I mean, that's what it is, to be a citizen is to abide by the rule of law. Interesting. Thank you so much, Michael, for your sharing. Next, we welcome Mr. Gerald Kong to give us a Christian perspective on piety and patriotism. Gerald?
Thank you, Dr. Maliki. I hope I can be heard from the back.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I'm going to present a understanding of how, specifically actually, how Catholicism views piety and patriotism. Of course, there'll be many intersects with Christianity as a whole. So the first slide is just to present that piety is viewed as a virtue. Piety is otherwise known as reverence. And if we look at the virtue of piety as far as Catholic Church teachings goes, it is actually one of the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. So the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which I have here, just to introduce to some who may not be familiar, is a 1-book volume of the summary of our Catholic faith. So actually I don't need to talk further. It's all here. You just need to buy one. Okay? But I will just try and explain what I have managed to do some research on. And from by extending this understanding of what is piety, which is reverence towards God and therefore the church, we can extend this, of course, towards our own homeland, our own country as well, because God is present. We believe that God is present here in Singapore, and God is present with us on earth as in humanity, and He is, of course, to be respected as well in our country and in our country's leaders. So I'm very lucky because our Archbishop has spoken quite a number of times on piety towards one nation and patriotism. Okay, so I've got a good reference from him. So some sayings from him, for example, from a lecture that he gave at the NTU RSIS Distinguished Lecture, and Ambassador Ong is in front of me, he was there as well. He said that if we are truly good Catholics, we will be even better Singaporeans and more patriotic, because if we truly love God, we would also love and care for our fellow men, promote peace and harmony to the world. So it speaks for itself. He also had another message. In fact, it was a National Day message not too long ago in 2015, in which he said, "No one can claim to be a good Christian if he or she is not at the same time a good citizen. Although as Catholics, our kingdom is not here on earth, yet we have a duty to be a good citizen on earth if we are to be admitted as Christians, if we are to be admitted as citizens of heaven." So clearly the message is, if you want to get to heaven, better be a good citizen. Otherwise you may not end up there. Right? Very, very clear message there.
Very good message.
Very good message. Thank you for the affirmation, Dr. Maliki. Okay, and then we move on to scriptural sources, which are always important, because scripture is a very important for the Catholic Church, and of course for all Christians as well to refer to. And in the letter of St. Paul to the Romans, in chapter 13, verses 1 to 2 and 5 to 7, let me just read this quote. It says, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. And those authorities exist, have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority resists what God has appointed. And those who resist will incur judgment. Therefore, one must be subject not only because of wrath, but also because of conscience. For the same reason, you also pay taxes, for the authorities are God's servants busy with this very thing. Pay to all what is due to theirs. Taxes to whom taxes are due, revenue to whom revenue is due, and respect to whom respect is due. Honor to whom honor is due. So once again, the message is very clear. Respect authorities, pay taxes.
Running theme.
Can't seem to run away from that.
Okay.
Now we have another scriptural passage from 1 Peter 4:10. It says clearly, and this was also quoted from another homily, a preaching by Bishop William Goh in 2013, quoting from scripture, "As each one has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace." Indeed, this is what Bishop says, good Christians have a moral responsibility to be good citizens. And if we will refer to what we call the social doctrine of the church, because there is one of the best kept secrets of the Catholic Church, which is that they are actually social doctrines. Oh, it seems to be running. Yep. Sorry, you have to go back. All right. According to the social doctrine of the church, number 185, it does make it clear that we are all debtors of society due to conditions that make human existence livable and indivisible and indispensable legacy. Let me just complete by going to the last document called Sapientiae Christianae number 5, which is about Christian wisdom by a pope. And he says, the natural law enjoins us to love devoutly and to defend the country in which we had birth and in which we are brought up, so that every good citizen hesitates not to face death for his native land. In fact, he was referring not so much to patriotism, that was presumed, but that citizens are reminded that as much as they have duties to the respective homeland, those should never override their duties to the church in terms of the truth. Okay, I'll end here.
Thank you very much for sharing with us, Gerald, the various injunctions in the Catholic faith that speaks volumes of the link between piety and the responsibility of citizenry in any country. Next, we have Ustad Hanan. May I remind speakers, keep to time? Yeah, we have the reminder at the back there. Okay, Ustad, Muslim perspective of piety and patriotism.
Thank you much, Dr. Maliki. A very good evening to everyone. Let me begin with making one argument, and that's about it. The argument goes that I'm as a Muslim, and I want to think that I'm a practicing Muslim, inshallah. It's basically love for and that sense of belonging to a motherland is innate, it's natural in Islam. And Islam, in fact, recognizes that, acknowledges that, and nurtures that belonging to a motherland. But what is more important is really the quality and meaningful belonging. It is not just a sense of belonging, it's not just love for our motherland, but what makes a quality and meaningful belonging to that land? That's the question that we need to ask. So what I'm going to do briefly here is basically just to take that two parts of my statement. My primary argument here is basically and to me probably this is what I mean by a pious patriotism and a patriotic piety. So it is the two parts of the two sides of the same coin, and we cannot possibly separate them. That you need to be pious patriotism as well as a pietic patriotism. Yeah. So, and therefore, allow me to just give an example from my tradition on the idea of love for and sense of belonging to one's motherland is innate and natural. And there's no better way than drawing inspiration from Prophet Muhammad. It was reported him saying once that he said that if it's not because the people of Mecca oppressed and chased me away, I wouldn't have left the Mecca, because it is the most beloved land to me. Yeah, and so when he was in Medina, he heard some of the companions were reciting poems, longing for Mecca. That they miss the mountains of Mecca, they miss the rivers of Mecca, and so on and so forth. And then Prophet Muhammad said, please let my heart rest. Because he was so touched. He was missing Mecca so much. And that's how natural, that's how innate, and Islam acknowledges that. But the next question that I really want to ask is really, how do we belong meaningfully? What makes this longing meaningful and purposeful? And let me draw also a tradition from Prophet Muhammad. During the pre-Islamic period, there was this, in Mecca, what we call the Alliance of Virtues, or Helful Fudul, Alliance of Virtues. Alliance of Virtues is a pact where they bring people, leaders of the tribe together in defense of the oppressed and the weak people. So Prophet Muhammad would join, and this was even before the Islamic period. So he would join, and he was part of this pact. And he wasn't a stranger in the Meccan community. All the Meccan people knew him very well because he was so active in the ground. Yeah. Now, after the Islam, when having migrated to Medina, and he was reported to say that if there was such pact again here in this time, I wouldn't hesitate to join and to make that pact meaningful. Now, that pact was pre-Islamic, consisted of the non-Muslims. But really, patriotism is not about belonging to a motherland, but the quality belonging. It is to defend the oppressed. It is to stand for justice. It is to stand for humanity. And that is really meaningful and purposeful contribution. It is contributing to humanity and common good. Yeah. Now, I remember I used to have, and they're still my friends, obviously, good friends who never stop arguing. We will argue on small things to the big things. We will argue even how do we perform our prayers. We will argue on every single thing. But when we go to the National Stadium, we all put the same shirt. We all will sit together. Now, especially in Singapore versus Malaysia. Or to be exact, during my time, Singapore versus Selangor. Muqtadahari and Dola Kasim during those days. Yeah, those are our days. Yeah, not really the younger days. Yeah. So I really want us to ask this question about how do we really develop that meaningful belonging and purposeful longing for our motherland. And let me end with this really a statement that loyalty is really loyalty to the cause, principle, and what is right. So probably here the idea of nationalism need to be weighed against this principle of loyalty to a cause. And that was what the Alliance of Virtues was all about. It is really about loyalty to a cause, about the principles, about loyalty to the ethical principles, and not just simply about your color, your blood, and skin. And let me again end with this statement. I started with this statement, and let me end with this statement, that love for and sense of belonging to one's motherland is innate and natural. Islam recognizes and in fact nourishes this feeling. And what is important is really quality and meaningful belonging, contributing to humanity and common good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Ustaz. Our next speaker, Mr. Gumit Singh.
Hi. Firstly, good evening and Eid al-Adha Mubarak to all our Muslims here. In this short 5 minutes, I want to share with you aspects of piety and patriotism according to Sikhism. Firstly, let's draw a parallel between parents and the state. Both utilize limited resources in order to meet your needs and provide you with further opportunities. Therefore, in the same way that we recognize the importance of honoring, serving, and taking care of our parents who provide for us, we also have a parallel responsibility of contributing to the state that fulfills a similar function. That's how the Sikhs think. If one thinks about piety in terms of religious devotion, a part of demonstrating piety is through service. For the Sikhs, it's seva, selfless service to others. And this service is extended to taking care of our surroundings, our environment, our communities, and of course, our nation at large. But this service should come naturally, without force. This was left for us by Kabir, a Muslim saint, and is given to the Sikhs in the Guru Granth Sahib, our holy scriptures. Force equals tyranny. So no force. Otherwise, we'll be answerable in the Lord's court. Now, I think we can all agree that the basis of any religion is the pursuit of truth and goodness. And to that end, which can only be achieved when we love and respect our fellow men. Again, this love and respect cannot be imposed. Sikhs don't coerce or force anyone into doing anything. At the same time, neither can they be coerced into doing wrong or forced into doing a wrong deed. So this begins with our own countrymen, which naturally translates into a love for the very foundation of our country. For without men, there is no such thing as a state. Therefore, in my opinion as a Sikh, it's safe to say that godliness and patriotism are essentially one and the same, and the highest order of existence that a human being could aspire to. Spirituality is about whatever gives us meaning, purpose, and joy in life. Religion provides us spirituality, something we build our lives around. Whatever gives meaning, purpose, and joy in our life becomes an important aspect of our existence. Adding on to this meaning, purpose, and joy in our family, our community, and our country. This patriotism, love of one country and one's people, for Sikhs, this cannot be separated from spiritual values of compassion and concern for others. According to our Guru's teachings, we should go beyond rituals and pious devotions, and this challenges us to love our neighbor and serve the common good. In fact, we can say that the highest form of devotion to the higher power is the humble service, seva, the selfless service of our fellow citizens, especially those most in need. Oh, this is very sensitive. Hello. Okay. For Sikhs, we must be willing to stand up for truth and our rights, both spiritual and for the nation. Guru Nanak Dev Ji told us that truth is a high virtue, but higher still is truthful living. Patriotism can be used to serve purely political needs. The role of religion, therefore, towards true patriotism, the Sikh way, act as a corrective to remind all believers of the various faith traditions that the well-being of society and the benefit of all citizens demand that we come together in harmony, despite cultural, ethnic, religious, and language differences. Please allow me to end with this. All religions should aim to say in their own way and according to their own distinctive doctrines that it's all right to be different, but it's not all right to allow our differences to keep us separate. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our final speaker, Master Wei, the Taoist perspective of piety and patriotism.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm privileged to share my views, the Taoist views this evening. And before that, I will start by expressing my gratitude to senior Taoist leaders, Mr. Tan Thiam Lai, Chairman of the Taoist Federation, Mr. Ling King Huat, and also Master Li Zhiwang, President of the Taoist Mission, Master Jun Tan and Hang Yong, and also Master Gao. I would like to start my presentation by quoting from Lao Tzu. In the chapter 67 of the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu emphasized on 3 values that all of us must observe. First is compassion, next is frugality, and last is humility. These are the values that all Taoists, in fact everyone, should embrace. Only if we can learn how to be compassionate and to be humble to all fellow men, we can be grateful to our elders and to our country. So, the first founder of the Taoist religion is Celestial Master Zhang Daoling. In fact, he told his disciple, Wang Chang, that before you even embark on the journey to seek immortality or to learn about the Tao, you must place the country's interests before oneself and contribute positively to the society. This is the exact words that's spoken. And for the Taoists, we view the individual self, ourselves, our family, and our fellow countrymen as a whole. Okay, that's why Chinese always say 国家, okay, the country and also our family. So our upbringing have bearings to achieve a happiness, a very happy family. We shape the peace and stability of our society and our country. So being pious, okay, it also means being filial to our parents, filial piety, and also loving one country. Okay, and also to promote unity among our people and also work towards a common goal. In the Taoist faith, piety is our priority and patriotism is actually paramount. For the spiritual development of oneself, we practice piety and compassion to all people around us. And for us, when we have, we do in social development, I mean how we treat others around us, we practice humility and also respect for everyone. So most importantly is also to assist our country and to serve humanity, to serve all. So we ought to love and be loyal and express our gratitude to our family and our country in which we live, where we work, play, and nurture our own faith. Only we have a stable country, then we can have the freedom to practice our own religion and to be pious in our faith. So a good Taoist actually considers the long-term good of our community before ourselves, and also to sacrifice our short-term comfort. So with this, I would like to share that for the Taoist faith, we seek to serve humanity and to love all. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we've seen some common threads running through, one of which really is to obey the law of the land, and patriotism is about that very much in relation to being pious too, because in order for you to be a good Muslim, good Christian, good Sikh, it's good to be a good Singaporean too, and being a good Singaporean is to follow the law. And I started out the conversation earlier by talking about perhaps the need for us to first draw a distinction between patriotism and nationalism. As I converse with panelists, please start thinking through the questions you might have based on their presentation. But maybe I could start off by asking our panelists, how do they view the difference between patriotism and nationalism? One might think that nationalism is blind loyalty, just whatever, whereas patriotism is really about making sense of deeper appreciation of the law of the country and all, right? So maybe I can just open the discussion with Gerald. What would you regard as, if ever, how do you distinguish between patriotism and nationalism?
How I view this is that, in line with what I shared about the Catholic view, patriotism stems from piety, and piety is actually a gift of the Holy Spirit. So it stands on something actually divine that is even not only innate, but that it comes from a divine source. So therefore, patriotism is this, can we say, a rightful reverence for one's homeland, one's country, whereas nationalism perhaps would be more fueled by human passion and emotions, and though there might be some element of the divine, but perhaps it has been more distorted and sort of overplayed. So that's how I would distinguish the two.
Okay. Ustad, any comment on that?
Yeah. I mentioned earlier if patriotism is loyalty, then our loyalty is really to the cause, to the principles, and to what is good and what is right. Now, if nationalism means as such, then by all means, yes, we would support that. Now, regardless of whatever name probably we render to the thing, but if it means that you support someone simply because of the color of the skin or where you belong, well, our blood doesn't have religion, so it's really about humanity. But if it's about your color, then we have difficulty with that. Obviously, we disagree. Loyalty is to the cause. Loyalty is to the principles. Loyalty is to what is right and what is good. If by nationalism we mean that, okay. But if by nationalism we mean simply because of our color, that we are superior than others, that we see how, as a Muslim, my prophet would have taught me that. He sort of rebuked a companion who sort of chided or ridiculed a black companion and say that in you there's quality, that there's a pre-Islamic and un-Islamic quality. So that's how I understand patriotism: loyalty to the cause and to the principles and to the good and good and right.
I suppose what we are saying is patriotism acknowledges right from wrong. If you follow nationalism blindly, if you are just asked to do something without clear distinction between right and wrong, then that's not probably what the different faith is actually advocating, right? Wei?
I agree with Ustads that most importantly we must stand for what is right, and also in our faith and also the laws of the country. So this is something I feel is very important.
All right. So we hear about laws, right? Laws of the piety is about being faithful. Also at the same time, following the rule of law and being a good citizen, pay your tax, follow your laws and all. So what happens if there is a difference between the law of the land and the law of religion? How do we draw that distinction? What should come before the other, right? And sometimes we are conflicted with that, right? Our religion says do this. The law of the land might say something else. I'm not sure whether necessarily there will be conflicts, but there are instances where there could have been similar conflicts. So what do we do if such a conflict arises? Maybe we get Gomit to share your perspective on that.
How's that again? Oh, very long, huh?
Okay, very simple. Should there be differences between the law of the land and the law of religion? How do you reconcile that difference?
I think my opinion, in Singapore, we don't have an issue because the country provides for all the religions. So I'm sure in Singapore, if they want to do something, there is a sort of a consultative committee that they can refer to. Other countries, I don't know. So they might have conflicting interests. But as far as Singapore is concerned, I know as a Sikh, I'm very safe because it is provided for. There is set committee that looks into, you've got minority rights or the Council for Multi-Faith and things like that. So we're very safe here. Other countries, I've got no say.
Michael, any comments on that? Should there be a difference between the law of the land and the law of religion? How do we reconcile that? How does the Buddhist reconcile that?
I'm with Gurmit because we haven't faced this issue yet in Singapore. So I am. I feel blessed that our government actually go through a process to make a decision, all right, and then debate certain before have a debate before we pass the law, right? So we are in a way quite safe, but I wouldn't be able to imagine if Singapore asked me to kill someone. Yeah, which I can't bring myself to do it. Yeah, so I wouldn't know. So until then, I will give you an answer.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll keep that question until it comes there. Was there any comment on that?
I'll try to remind myself not to go to the legal philosophy. but law is really, if you can imagine, iceberg, law is really the tips of the iceberg. It changes often. What is more important is really to understand the objectives and the purpose, the principles. And our loyalty is really to the objective, to the principles
of the law,
and the meaning. So, for example, if the question is not about what if there's contradiction between the two laws. I would argue that now I need to understand first the principles and objectives before the law. For example, speeding, right? Speeding. So far, I haven't gotten a ticket on speeding. Good, alhamdulillah.
But you have not spit in public.
So, okay, the law says if you speed, you've got to, I don't know what's the demerit points, you pay, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Yes, obviously you do not find that in the Islamic text. But the principle is we've got to protect life. We've got to protect one's cleanliness and so on and so forth. So that is a principle. So to me, it's not so much about the contradiction between, if there's any, the laws, but really to understand the principles, purpose, objectives of that law. And often we'll see that this is where we will stand on common ground. So it's not really about contradiction, but let's look back to the philosophy, objective of the law. Thank you.
Sorry, can I add to that? Okay, I'm trying to visualize if a Sikh who's not in Singapore, the Sikhs got to maintain this outlook. It has happened in other parts of the world. I know the first pilot for a F-16 was a Sikh. He went to the US for training, and he was told, he was a good pilot, he was told that he has to cut off his hair and his beard because otherwise he can't put on the helmet and the mouthpiece, And he said, you go to hell. I'm not going to do that. This is, in Singapore, I've been flying. In India, they're pilots. They don't cut off their hair and shave the beard. But maybe that was the law in the US at that time. So he called up Ministry of Defense in Singapore, and he told them, this is my stand. I'm not going to do this. So they told him to come back. But in Singapore, we provide for that. And guess what? He came back here. He was the first F-16 pilot too, despite not having trained in the US.
Okay.
So I think it's how you yourself stand if you're forced. And that's why we were told, our gurus told us, you cannot be forced into doing something which is against your religion.
Well, if I can stretch that question a little bit more into a more sensitive area. For example, we do have a very serious penalty for drug trafficking, for example. right down to the death penalty, right? How does our individual faith respond to the death penalty, as it were? It's a law of the land, right? Maybe Gerald, you can share with us the Catholic perspective on that.
This is a very difficult question.
Yes, I see.
I might be hung for
but
this.
we are open because we want to discuss very important things. These are real issues we want to unravel. Yes.
Yeah, for those who have been familiar with the developments, can we say, in the Catholic Church, Pope Francis has been very clear very recently that the death penalty is a strict no-no. Why? Because of the Catholic teachings on the fifth commandment, thou shalt not kill. Every life is divine. Every single person has been created godlike. In Genesis 1:26, made in the image and likeness of God. And so regardless of the person's abilities, natural abilities or otherwise, family background, mental health and all that, no life is ever to be taken away indiscriminately. So I think in this case of, say, the death penalty that's imposed in Singapore, we can appreciate the reasons for that. But according to our faith, perhaps we'll have to dialogue with the government authorities and to see how we can somehow work things out. So not denying our own faith beliefs, but at the same time not just going out to the streets to protest, and create havoc, but really believing that together as government, as people of faith, as people of goodwill, we can work out a solution that can be in the best interest of our country, of our people.
Well, I suppose that in itself is a practice of piety.
Yes.
Where you find ways to resolve differences and find a common ground. Should there be a common ground? Otherwise, respect of the rule of the law at the point in time where it still exists today, and subsequently move forward when opportunities arise.
Certainly.
Okay. Can I invite questions from the floor now? Is there anyone? Yes. There's a question on... Can we bring the mic there? Can we have your name, ma'am?
I'm Joginda Kaur.
Madam Kaur, yes.
Yes. Happen
Yes.
to be the older sister of Gurmit.
Oh, your Gurmit's older sister. I see. Okay, yes.
Right. Now,
I better behave myself.
now I'm so grateful to the organizers for having this platform where we come together and discuss religion freely. And I've been to many sessions, but what saddens me is that we find the older people here. Not old, but, not the youth. And there's so much religious, racial strife in the world. And I feel that our youngsters are insulated from that. There are some who may be affected by what's happening around the world. So what are we doing to help or to expose our youngsters that, there's another way of looking at it? I don't know, maybe MOE could be doing something, for the children. We have to start with the children, expose them to what is happening around the world and how we are tackling this in Singapore.
All right. Thank you very much for your comment, Madam Kaur. I think we do have some young people here, right? Maybe it all depends on how we define young people, huh? Some of us consider ourselves young still, right? Okay, so maybe for us to reassure Madam Kaur that there are young people, can I invite all the young people who are below 35 years old, please stand up. Come, don't be shy. Oh, all want to stand up. Walama. Come. All the young people before, hey, come. Hey, my son, hello, don't pretend. Stand up, yeah. All right, so I think we are trying to reassure Madam Kaur that opportunities are being created for young people also to be exposed, and I think we will continue to do more by virtue of the fact that this is an ongoing engagement with Singaporeans to understand interfaith issues, right? Can I have the next question?
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
When she mentioned that, this rang some bells in my head.
Did you stand up just now?
Huh? No.
You didn't?
No. Okay, I experienced this personally in the college I teach in. It is youngsters. I still remember 4 students came up to me and said, this was after, okay, I won't give you the details. You go and Google 1984 Operation Blue Star. You go and Google that. And these students came up to me and said, you Sikhs killed our mother. Then I said, what? Where did that come from? I knew where it was coming from because we knew about it had happened, 1984. So what I did was I had to call them into the canteen. It's a good thing it's the end of the day. I sat down and they were pouring out their grievances about what happened, the consequences of Operation Blue Star and blah, 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 blah. So I went on to, certain historical parts. I'll fast forward to, then I told them about 1919, the massacre in Amritsar, the city of the Golden Temple. You also Google about it, huh? Then there was this massacre in 1921 in Nankana Sahib, another big massacre. Then we fast forward again to this. Then I asked them about this. I said, what upset you about the consequences that happened 4,000 kilometers away? Did you experience it? Which part of India are you from? One of them said, my parents are from Tamil Nadu. Okay, the rest of you, the other 3, we are Singaporean. Oh, I tell you, it was damn good when they said they are Singaporeans. But, so I said, how did you come to know? This friend of ours told us this. I said, how did you come to know? My parents told me this, that our mother was killed. Then I said, so what occurred to me was, when you say youngsters, who feeds them this news? Do our adults feed them the proper way of doing it? Or what do we do? Sorry, Bhuvan, maybe education must help. Huh? No, but it is true. What you feed, what you plant into the child or even adults, we get very emotional. If this had been said to someone in the street at that time, I think these poor 4 fellows would have been beaten up. It's a good thing they told me in college. Say, I had to be very calm. And if I had said that, they asked me, they say, weren't you upset? I say, of course I'm upset. I'll be kidding myself if I'm not upset. But it happened in another place. So, you've got, and guess what? It didn't stop there. Huh? 1 week later, they came up to me. Glory. They apologized, which was what we should be. There should be an avenue for these kids to be learning and picking up what's going on around them. We need to nip it in the bud.
I think one of the challenges today also, the information is just not from parents, but also social media. The information is everywhere. I think it's where the sessions that we have today provides opportunities for us to dialogue and then to see how do we dissect some of these challenges and contextualize some of the experiences that happen elsewhere and what does it mean to us. And patriotism really is what does it mean to us in Singapore, our own country, and what does that mean to us as Singaporeans. Do we get influenced? Do we not get influenced? Do we understand what's happening, yet understand what is the difference between where it's happening and what's happening here too? I saw a hand here. Yes.
Okay, hello. Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Rohim. I'm a lawyer. Members of the panel spoke a lot about the laws, traffic laws. Becoming a law seminar.
Yes.
So my question, I think you raised an issue about whether there's any conflict, right, between the Singapore laws and religious laws. I think straight off, because I've been practicing for a long time, there are conflicts, right, between Muslim law and the local laws, right? But how we handle those conflicts, I think that differentiate us from other nations in handling and harmonizing the conflicts. For example, right, in Singapore property law, right, it's very simple. joint tenancy principles, one party dies, right? The other co-owner becomes the sole owner, right? No questions asked, you become the sole owner. But under Muslim law, it was different. I say was. It was different because under our Muslim law, right, the person who died, his share should go to the beneficiaries, right, which is different from joint tenancy principles. So it was like, the position was like that for many years, right?
That's right, yeah.
Until
Recently.
now, or recently, the Mufti issued a fatwa to say that, look, we harmonize the law between our Muslim law and the civil law, so that, you know, the law becomes the same for everyone. So how we handle issues in Singapore is rather unique because we try to accommodate positions, we try to accommodate and harmonize the laws between Muslims and non-Muslims in Singapore. So I think that's one of the ways where I think where there is harmony, right, between both sets of law, civil law and Muslim law, right? But there are other examples, right, which there are still conflicts, but are not resolved yet. So hopefully in future, where there are more dialogues between, you know, between the Muslim Council and other Singaporeans, we can resolve those issues. Thank you. That's my comment.
Thank you very much. I think that comes to the point we spoke earlier about how important it is for us to continue the dialogue, and as society evolve, some of these things become critical, and the engagement with the different communities is very critical. We do have the platform for that. Ustaz, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I will not go into detail because I'm party to that in the committee. But again, I want to stress the idea of the principles of the law. I mean, why the fatwa, why the law change? Simply because we look and relook again at the principles of the law and how that law serves the community and the people. And because of that, the fatwa committee did not hesitate to review and relook into the law. And that is precisely what I was saying just now. The legal part is really the tips of the iceberg that changes often depending on the situations and so on and so forth, but the principles remain. And that is really a classic example of how we deal with that law, and we look into the principles of the law, and we did not hesitate to change the earlier position.
Thank you, sir. Any next comment, question? Another lawyer. Once you bring the law, lawyers cannot resist. Keep microphone, yeah. We need to hear, Mr. Marikan.
Yeah, Mr. I'm just saying, to follow up on your point, if your ruling was contrary to Islam, there would have been objection and protest. But I think it was handled properly to convince the Muslim that it was in accordance also with Islamic principles. That sold the day. Can you elaborate on it? That you did not compromise on the Islamic principle when you make that ruling. That was a sensitive point which the Muslim accepted. Right? Maybe you can elaborate, because that is the most important point. Did you compromise on Islamic principles when you make a ruling? If you had done that, there would have been a protest. The point I'm trying to say that people who are qualified to understand Islamic law can handle it. Not anyone to say that we must comply with nationalism or what have you. It's easier for us. So the amendment you made or the ruling you made was not contrary to Islamic principles. Maybe you can elaborate on that point.
Yeah, in short, we did not compromise. Simply put, we did not compromise, and therefore I think the community did not protest. Often it is about communication. It's really about, so we had series of engagement with the community, and alhamdulillah, fortunately, people did not compromise. Thank you.
Any comments, Wei? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Ong Keng Yong. I think we better get away from this lawyer business. We are talking about piety and patriotism. I wanted to ask all the panelists, piety and patriotism in your scripture, was it treated with the same meaning? In other words, what is piety equals to patriotism, or patriotism equal to piety? Because patriotism means devotion, love and devotion to one's country. Yeah, and if it is religion, at that time, the devotion to country is quite different from our current day nationalism. So I think the first principle is don't mix up patriotism with nationalism when you talk about religion, right? Otherwise, we will have a situation where, Hanan, you will say, Islam according to Arab tradition, or Islam according to Malay tradition.
Right.
Yeah, so nationalism is something that came later. Yeah, and I think it's better not to mix patriotism with nationalism. So going back to our various religion represented on the stage today, piety and patriotism, what does it mean? All the religion that represented on the stage have also got piety and patriotism, or they just talk about piety. But if they do talk about patriotism in the traditional beginning of all the respective religion, it must be talking about love and devotion to the country. That's why in some citation which our speakers have put out, we see some references to respecting the authorities.
That's right. And the law of the
and
land.
pay your tax.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the old day, paying tax is very important, just like now. Yeah. So they did not distinguish whether it is the Singapore tax law or the Malaysian tax law or whatever, but they say to the authorities where you are in. So therefore, piety and patriotism, I think, are taken in the context of those kind of circumstances. We belong to a particular place, we are devoted to the place that we are in, we are devoted to our religion, we are devoted to our love for the place that we belong to. Yeah. So I think maybe in this context, just to deliberate how your respective scripture talk about piety, or are they talking about piety and patriotism with the same meaning? Thank you.
All right. Can maybe you get a quick summary from each speaker to respond to Mr. Ong's question, the reference to piety and patriotism in your respective faith. Michael?
I'd like to get Venerable Wu Xing to comment. Is that fine?
Sure.
Yeah. 悟性法师，请那个。
谢谢我们宗教领导以及各个所有的这个以及我们政府这个宗教的代表以及所有的宗教人士大家晚上好我
OK all right I'll translate sorry
那我今天是刚好来参加法会所以刚好这个机会能够参与这个盛会那么我非常赞叹我们新加坡一直以来都很致力于这个宗教的和谐那么尤其是9大宗教过去我的师父就是在新加坡把这个9大宗教成为一个他在往后的宗教的发展在全世界，尤其现在到了联合国，就是以新加坡为基础所以。
Can you give them time to translate a little bit?
I'll take everything and then I'll do it one.
I see. Okay. Alright.
尤其我们现在老和尚都在联合国这个推广这个宗教的融合那么来带给世界和平所以新加坡对这个世界是非常有最大的贡献因为老和尚就是从新加坡这个和谐那么到联合国那么从这个平台去推广所以 我希望新加坡这一个宗教的融合能够继续的做我相信只要宗教做了融合，这国家就是兴旺那一定和谐那就不会有这些问题出现那其实以佛教的角度来看，佛教徒是绝对不会做这种事情跟国家任何冲突，因为自古以来在历史上，国家任何的政策，佛教徒是绝对遵守、绝对配合的甚至于绝对不会做任何违法比如说五戒十善，这是最基本的要求所以对自己的要求，在对国家法律的尊重国家的这个和谐安定的配合，这是佛教徒最重要的一个先决条件这是我说明的，谢谢。
Thank you. Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank our guest of honor, as well as to all religious faith leaders. A very good evening to all of you. I'm here today at this dialogue. It just happens so that because I'm here joining a Dharma congregation organized at Marina Bay Sands. I've always been very impressed with the Singapore government's effort in uniting or in religious harmony. I would like to take this opportunity to mention my teacher, Venerable Master Ching Kong. He made an effort in uniting the 9 different religions back then. And he's been continuing with his effort in uniting the different religions. He is right now at UNESCO doing the same project, doing the same religious effort. He strongly believed when all religions are in harmony, we can achieve world peace. And that's exactly what he's doing right now at UNESCO. Religious unity happened in Singapore. Therefore, Singapore contributed and acted as the greatest platform for religious harmony to be realized. We believed with religious harmony, there will be prosperity in the country. And if there's harmony among all the different religions, there will be no such issues and problems that we are discussing right now. From a Buddhist perspective, we are never in conflict with the country. A Buddhist should always abide by the law. Take for example, the 5 precepts or the 10 meritorious acts. These are all the basic teachings of Buddhism, and it's teaching all Buddhists to abide by the law of a country. Therefore, that's the prerequisite to be a Buddhist. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe your perspective in response to Mr. Ong's question.
Patriotism?
Piety and patriotism in Taoism.
So in Taoism, I think the most emphasis is filial piety. I mean, to our elders, our parents. I think this is the very essential for the upbringing of a Taoist. I mean, this is always been drilled to us when you are young, to be respectful to our parents, to be grateful to the elders, and also, most importantly, to be grateful and also express our gratitude to our country. So even for the Taoist prayers every day, we have a daily morning rites and evening rites. The phrase that we always recite is to pray for our country, for stability and peace, and to always remind us the country comes first before self. So even in the closing prayers, when we finish, the last praise in our prayers is also dedicated to the country. So I think for Taoists, most importantly, it is really the love for the place that we live in, the place that nurture us, and the place that we give us a very safe environment to practice our own faith. So I think this is something that is very close to our hearts.
Ustad, you mentioned about patriotically pious and piously patriotic. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more in response to Mr. Ong's question.
I was checking the Oxford Dictionary on the definition of piety. So it says here piety is the state of having or showing a deep respect for someone or something, especially God and so on. In that sense, we are all asked to respect, which I mentioned earlier, is about the cause, is about the principles, and so on. Now, in our tradition, the fatwa is really the Islamic edict issued by a mufti. A mufti is the person who issues a fatwa. By the way, Mr. Rahim, in Singapore, our mufti does not issue fatwa, by the way. Although the name is mufti, mufti does not issue fatwa. The committee, the fatwa committee issues a fatwa. The mufti is the chairman of the fatwa. And the fatwa consists of members, and for each fatwa, we must come to consensus. That's really, so it is by consensus. So all members must agree on a fatwa. So, and in our tradition, when we ask for fatwa, we must ask from the mufti, or for that matter, the fatwa council of that particular place. I cannot go and ask for a mufti in Saudi for my problem on joint tenancy, for example, and ask a mufti in Egypt or in Saudi, however reverend they are. A good mufti will say, ask your mufti at your right place. Because the mufti at that place knows the context and knows what's suitable. And that's patriotic. Yeah? You keep to the principles, but at the same time, you're cognizant of the context and the place, and issue the fatwa which fits that particular place. So when we issue a fatwa and make a national position, that is a pious patriotism or a patriotic piety. And we respect that law of the country. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've heard earlier from Gerald also about the different precepts on that. So I want to just bring the discussion back to patriotism in the Singapore context, right? When you talk patriotism, a lot of times the one word that comes across also is defense, right? And you know where I'm from also, right? So when we talk about defense in Singapore, it's uniquely Singapore, right? We have national service, for example, and that is one of the things that every young male Singaporeans have the obligation and responsibility to perform national service. So let's talk a little bit more about piety and this whole idea of having to perform a national duty. What does it really mean? Is there a conflict? I don't think there should be a conflict, but let's hear from our panelists here. So between religious obligations, secular obligation, or national obligation like national service, how does one strike that balance? Should there be a conflict with regards to performing national obligations? For example, performing prayers, doing duties on Sundays, having to go for the prayers for the Muslims, and yet you have to go outfield and perform and do your training. How does one strike a balance between these two? Maybe I start with Gerald.
Okay, I'm going to rely on this book I have before me, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which does state in a very succinct way issues about national defense, about safeguarding peace and all that. And it actually says that those who are sworn to serve their country in the armed forces are servants of the security and freedom of nations. If they carry out their duty honorably, they truly contribute to the common good of the nation and the maintenance of peace. So quoting just that paragraph alone, I think it suffices to make clear the Catholic stand that we consider our loyalty and, of course, service to the nation in terms of national service and defense as intrinsic as it is to live out our faith and our loyalty to God.
Thank you, Gerald. Ustad, in this context, sometimes there's been questions about obligations. Islam has certain obligations for the Muslims with regards to prayers and all, but sometimes there's also that obligation to perform their national service duties with regards to, as I mentioned, examples of training needs and all. So what's the perspective? Is this adaptability that's allowed for? How does one strike that balance between being a pious Muslim and being a good citizen too?
Often it's not about religion, it's about knowledge. I give example in terms of prayer. And it is also traditional. I mean, as a young boy, and probably Dr. Maliki of almost same age.
We are still young.
You know, when we do our prayer, we imagine we must do our prayer with the sarong,
Yes.
put on the songko, and then the mat, a proper prayer. And we do not know how to do prayer in other ways. When actually it's very easy. You can do in many other ways. I mean, this evening I was doing a prayer, I just look for one corner and then I do my prayer. That's it. Although I know that organizers prepared a
prayer room, yeah.
A prayer room. So it's not about that conflict, but often it's about the ignorance, knowledge that you can perform your rituals in many ways. You go to anywhere, you know?
Jungle also can.
Jungles, wherever, no? And you can perform. You can still be a good Muslim. You can still be a practicing Muslim, but it's about knowledge. People just do not know. They're just so used, and this is traditional. This is not about religion. This is about I'm just so used to doing this. I mean, even for the ladies in the past, they imagine if you want to do your prayer, then you've got to put on your telekong, your that white. And it has to be white. I don't know why must it white. But no, you can do, you perform as long as it's covered. So it is about that knowledge. So it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, as a matter of principle, we know that we need to defend. I mean, I was talking with my son, who just got a letter to register.
Ah, okay.
So this morning on our way to prayer.
Age group. My son just enlisted.
Yeah. So we're talking, okay, where do we go? So whether he wants to go to SCDF or police or army. I said, if you want to get better allowance, then you go and do SCDF.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah, they got better allowance, right? So, and again, it's about knowledge, how to practice, and we can be good Muslim, practicing Muslim in whatever condition. It's just a matter of knowledge, knowing how to do that.
So it's adaptable. You can find, if you know the knowledge, you know how to perform it, and it's not in conflict with the obligations.
Because that situation is not just unique to us. Even in the
Yes.
majority of Muslim countries, they too have firemen,
That's
they
right,
have
yeah.
soldiers, they too have to deal with such situation, training and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Wei, from the Taoist perspective?
Quite similar to Ustaz, but for example, if a Taoist, traditionally we will keep our hair. All Taoists will say that the hair is a gift from our parents and we should keep it. So you see, if when I serve my national service, Taoists also shave our hair, same hairstyle. So there's no instance where we will insist that it's my tradition, my Taoist tradition, that I must keep my hair in the bun, nearly in the bun, because I cannot do so. I must. It's a religious obligation. But because the national interest comes first, so for the defense of our country and serving of a national service, we do shave our hair and wear the same uniform as others. I did not insist that. I was already ordained as a priest before I joined. I went for national service. I never insist that I must wear my robe. So I think it's something that we can come together. To serve our country first, and also in our personal space, we practice our religion religiously.
All right, Mr. Gumit.
Again, very safe in Singapore. I did my national service too. My son did his national service. Because there's a provision for it, we didn't have to shave our hair. We didn't have to cut the beard. We didn't have to put on a helmet because the turban is there. And that's provided in our law, that we don't have to. So, and our gurus also said, you serve wherever you're settled. Like, I think, Ustad, you said that right. So, if it's in the interest of the country, you have to do it. If you feel that you cannot oblige, then I personally assume you have to leave the country then.
If you can't serve.
Yes.
Yeah. So the country comes before.
First.
So your patriotism.
Yes.
Perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael.
Okay, for Buddhists, there isn't any conflict on serving national service. Shaving hair is they help you actually. They shave your hair, you get one step further into Buddhism.
Without having to go through.
Yeah, that's right. So when you see your master, your hair shaved already. Good. And then so for those vegetarian, actually the SAF also provides vegetarian food. So That's also catered for. I think we are in an environment where it's quite easy to practice our faith. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Time is running. I've got one last question which I would like to invite some of our very senior practitioners or our very senior religious leaders here. So we've spoken about piety, we've spoken about patriotism. Now, how do we increase or enhance our sense of, I think enhancing sense of piety, we don't need to ask. Individual faith will probably be able to say this is how you enhance your piety, be more religious and everything else, right? But I want to ask our senior friends out here, how do we enhance patriotism in the perspective of our own respective faith? All right, so I'm going to put everybody on the spot here. First, my good friend, Reverend Yu Kwang. Where is he? Venerable Yu Kwang. Yes, yeah, my good friend. Okay, how would you say from a Buddhist perspective enhance patriotism?
In the first place, lots of answer is being answered. So in Buddhism, the four gratitudes actually magnifies everything. So the four gratitudes is gratitude to our parents, gratitude to all sentient beings, gratitude towards our own faith, for us the triple gems, and most importantly also gratitude towards the nations. So our parents provide with us this life, so we have to be gratitude towards them. All sentient beings, we are never alone. Nobody can say that they can live alone. So in the whole sense, in the Buddhist teaching of interconnectivity, so whenever we do things, we must be thankful for everyone around us. So being patriotism is part of this essence of things. And being grateful to your spirituality, it grounds ourselves so that you won't be like, I'm the only one and everything. So, and gratefulness to our nations is always something that always reminds the younger ones, no matter what, you go to army, right? Just enjoy it. I myself, I'm in Provost, so I always encourage people, go, enjoy it. You don't like it, you also enjoy. Don't like it, also enjoy. Must also enjoy. So it's a change of mental attitude, you know?
Finished your ICT already, huh?
I'm serving in another capacity.
I was looking forward to you wearing your uniform. I haven't seen you in that uniform yet.
I'm in the board of visitors to station,
okay.
Right? So in a way, for us, it's actually shift of perspective. That's very important. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sister Teresa, can I have your perspective on how do we enhance patriotism from a Catholic perspective?
Well, I don't go to a national service. First and foremost, I feel that when we are talking about patriotism, even as a Christian, as a Catholic, we're not just talking about Singapore per se, because our young people today, or people in general, we find that we are traveling so much, right? So when we travel, we get off here, we leave our country behind, as we are talking about a space. But when we leave, actually, Singapore is with us. Our people are with us. For almost more than 10 years of my life, I was in Italy. I realized that when I was out of Singapore, I was more Singaporean. So even working in the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue, very often, out there in Europe, at a certain point, I hope things are better, whenever they hear about Islam or Muslim, for majority, they don't really have a good experience. Because at that time, with all the migration and then Muslims asking for rights and all, no? So I have my sisters. We are an Italian congregation. And then they say, these Muslims that now in Italy, for them it's a real fear, right? And I have to share with them, I said, no, Muslims are not like that. It's part of that patriotism because of my experience of our Muslim brothers and sisters here. I carry that with me. So I think it's very important that wherever we are, we live really our identity. for me as a Christian, as a Catholic, that I have to stand up also to the truth, really of defending not just country in that sense, but defending also who our people are, wherever, where we are located. And I feel that for me, this is a wonderful opportunity really for me to reflect once again what it means for me, piety and patriotism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sister. Maybe one last, another comment from our senior Master Tan. Can we hear your perspective?
My surname is Lee.
Sorry, Master Lee. I thought you were Master, yeah.
Maybe allow me to use Mandarin.
Yes.
其实讲到这个孝道跟爱国心，特别是我们道教，其实大家都知道，道教是中国原有土生的宗教。中国人，包括我们现在的世界各地的华人，都原本几千年来都受到了儒家思想、道教的教育的深刻的影响，所以在华人的思想里面，永远是要孝敬父母，要爱国家。那特别是在忠孝不能两全的时候，你要怎么选择？其实这个问题我应该丢给在场的每一位，因为刚才大家都讲得很好的，但是如果在忠孝不能两全的情况下，你作何选择？但是你看中国历朝历代，我们出了很多的爱国人，爱国的忠臣，像岳飞、史可法、文天祥等等，他们不为抱权，为的就是热爱他的国家，牺牲自己。道教也是一样，因为刚才我说了，都是我们几千年来的这种教育影响，我们的思想里面永远就是孝跟忠。那特别在古代的中国呢，因为现在很多华人都不懂得华人的礼仪，在古代中国里面，有时候每逢比如说新皇帝登基或者国家大庆典的时候，他们国家会有一个大赦，就是赦免那些在犯罪在监牢里面的犯人，无论你犯了什么罪，都可以大赦，但是唯独两种人不可以赦，就是叛国者跟不孝父母的人。那从这里呢，再讲回我们新加坡道教协会接管的那个新加坡玉皇宫的前身，它是庆德会，他们会呢是由36个从马六甲过来的爸爸组织起来的一个会。他们会里面呢有一条很严格的会规，如果有任何一个会员对父母不孝的话，父母投诉到会里来，他的会长就是 chairman， 有权利审问后可以鞭打这个会员，因为华人永远把孝放在第一，但是碰到忠孝选择的时候，一定是忠排第一。
Thank you very much, sir. Can we have the translation, please? Each one just to wrap up. Each one just to wrap up one message.
Sorry, I'm kind of like wired and entangled over here. Earlier on, Master Lee was mentioning that talking about filial piety and patriotism, as we all understood, Taoism is a religion in China, or rather the original religion in China, and has a very long history. For all Chinese across the world, we've been influenced by Confucius' teaching, and that's been more than thousands of years. To a Chinese, be filial to parents and be loyal to the country is utmost important. So what if we are caught in between filial piety and patriotism? Master Lee was saying that, in fact, I should be asking the audience this question. What should be your choice if you are being caught in between? If we were to look at our Chinese history, there's a lot of heroes. Heroes like Yue Fei, like Wen Tianxiang. Their love for their country ended up sacrificing themselves. Taoism, in its long history of more than 1,000 years of influence by Confucianism, we mention and emphasize a lot on filial piety and patriotism. If you look at the ancient Chinese history, of all the Chinese traditions and Chinese teachings, whenever a new emperor comes into power, he would pardon the criminals, regardless of the crimes. However, there are two types of criminals that will not be pardoned by this new emperor. One who committed treason, and one who is not filial to their parents. They will not be pardoned at all. Back to the Taoism in Singapore. Master Lee, I may not have gotten the client that you mentioned earlier on. 之前讲到的那些会我没有抓进去。庆德会. So there is a Qingde clan. It is actually formed by 36 Baba from Malacca. In this Qingde clan, there is a law stated in this founding of this clan. That is, if someone who is not filial to their parents, and the parents were to complain to the chairman of this clan, they have the right to punish this person. They have the right to cane this person. And if we are caught in between filial piety and patriotism, from a Taoist perspective, we always place loyalty ahead of the other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Master Lee. Indeed, very, very powerful message from our very senior friends from all the key faith present here today. Before I wrap up, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to just give us one closing message to all of us with regards to the topic of piety and patriotism. Maybe we start with Gurmit. Just one message to our audience from a lens. Not an easy topic, I think, and that's what attracted us to this evening, I'm sure. It is also really worthwhile for us to stocktake on ourselves, as mentioned by Sister Teresa in her reflections earlier. Sometimes it will just take time to reflect on some of these very important aspects of our lives. Does enduring one's motherland actually enliven one's religion? The other way around. Does enlivening one's religion enlivens one's love for one's motherland? These are very intricate, intertwined aspects. What serving divinity, of course, includes loving one's country. And we've heard today, generally from all our speakers here, it is two aspects, those sides of the same coin. Enhancing one's piety is synonymous to enhancing one's patriotism, as well as, I think this is working already now. Enhancing one's patriotism also means one is a better faith person, better Muslim, better Christian, better Sikh, better Taoist, and a better Muslim in this regard. So this evening, I'm very glad that our learned speakers and resource persons have helped us to gain greater insights and acquainted us to what these different faiths hold in relation to piety and patriotism. So we are really very grateful for all this, for those who have contributed constructively for this session. Very warm, and thank you so much for your participation. Let me just run off by a few other comments to kind of like bring the discussion together. We all know that every nation has its own unique developments, history, the demography, the dynamics, and Singapore is no different. And we're unique in our own sense, and that's why we heard so much about contextualizing our experiences. Modern societies bear no single ethnicity or identity, even so today. With the openness, with globalization, there's no way one modern society can just be of one ethnic identity or ethnicity, nor provide solely for one faith subscription within their domains. We are so diverse as it is today. So indeed, diversity is beauty with bountiful benefits and blessings. But it has to be properly managed, as we all know, or else it can turn regrettably ugly and even bloody, as we've seen in some other parts of the world. Diversity must bring us together rather than pull us apart. And I think that's what we've been doing consciously in Singapore. And sessions of this nature today constantly remind us how important it is for us to continue to dialogue and find the common grounds and common spaces that we are operating together. It is critical that we constantly make consistent and constructive engagements to assemble our people, to better understand one another clearer, bond ourselves together, and remove any divisive elements or obstacles that may exist. This will be a continuous, albeit arduous and enduring journey, but one, if done with smartness and sincerity, can be truly fulfilling, enduring, and enriching. And I've been experiencing this for the last 2 years, organizing and moderating sessions like tonight. Really very enduring and fulfilling. Humankind must consciously protect, preserve, and promote the dignity and sanctity of humanity for the sake of our nation's growth and our next generation's sustainable future. And we spoke about that, how important the future is. Many of us, every time when we talk about the future, MOE becomes a target, and Puvan is always here to take notes on what MOE can and should continue to do. But it doesn't rest on MOE alone. I'm very sure Puvan will agree that it rests on every one of us. And that's why we are here tonight, to gain greater insights, greater knowledge, so that we can go back and transmit it to our young. And of course, as Mrs. Kaur mentioned earlier, encourage more young people to be part of this journey. For the very sake of social harmony and cohesion, we need to focus on the most fundamentals of similarities based on common good morals, including respect, graciousness, gratitude, and goodwill. And we heard amongst our speakers today. When we are ever willing to explore, understand, and respect and appreciate those differences, there is all the chance that we can uncover the blessings behind those differences, where people can then accept one another rather than merely tolerating each other. And that's what I've always said. We need to go beyond tolerance we need to go one level higher to accept one another, accept and respect our differences, and celebrate our similarities. I'm very happy that the presenters and organizers of this Interfaith National Day special have included the 1-minute observance earlier to collectively reflect on and give thanks to peace and progress that we enjoy in Singapore and as Singaporeans. It is truly important for us to be consciously and naturally grateful for the blessings that we have and to instill the spirit of gratitude and graciousness in our families, friends, colleagues, and most importantly, our next generation. So in closing, allow me to borrow a line from one of our National Day songs, We Are Singapore, and I'm sure all of you know that song. I'm not going to ask you to sing, because I think we've sung quite a lot of National Day songs in the last couple of days. But if I can take a line from that song. We've come so far together, our common destiny, Singapore forever, a nation strong and free. It's a very, very powerful statement that I think is very, very relevant for us this evening. And I do strongly believe that in order for us to continue being strong and free, we need to truly embrace, observe, and enliven the two virtues of piety and patriotism. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish everyone a joyous and restful reminder of these festive holidays. Thank you so much for joining us, and look out for our other installations of such interfaith dialogue. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. Thank you so much for being the Singaporeans that we all are. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Maliki, and our 5 speakers for sharing your insight on the topic. I'm sure all of us learned something new and interesting to bring home today. For now, we will call upon Dr. Maliki to present a simple token of appreciation to our panel.